Everyone. Thank you
Good
guys
morning.
for coming today.
Good morning.
I know it's been crazy week with this bridge and everybody's so busy with your deals. So thank
Yep.
you for coming. So today we're going to be working on storytelling your top 10 value points to buyers. And this presentation or Blue U training topic came out of our um, how to perform a buyer presentation. So background for everybody during the actual Blue U and reviewing the presentation, there's two slides that talk about the 10 ways that you are valuable to a buyer to use as their agent, both individually as yourself and then also value points to remind a buyer why it's important to use an agent that's advocating for them, representing for them, and has a fiduciary towards them. So during that section, when we were reviewing it during Blue U, Christina McVaney mentioned about kind of having a time like this to review, what are some storytelling options that we can kind of craft for ourselves individually to utilize when talking to buyers. So that's how we got to today. So let's jump on in.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Brian.
Oh my God, that was so weird.
That was so weird.
So I'm trying to get the link for Chris, and then I accidentally signed on my phone.
I know that's what would happen. That's so funny. Weird.
Brian, do you have a twin?
Yes, it was me.
It was you. You're your twin. Okay. So, crafting compelling stories. When creating stories to illustrate the value of your service to buyers, consider these important elements. So, first thing you want to do is identify your audience. Know who you are speaking to. Are they first-time home buyers, experienced investors, or someone else? Tailor your story to their needs and expectations. So, by the time that you're at this top 10, in the buyer presentation, you're going to know who your audience is. You're going to know, what division you should be pushing to them if they apply, are about a division. If they're urban to suburban and they're moving from the city. If they're, a family or somebody who's looking to start a family and they're coming from the city, moving to Fairfield, want to live in the burbs, that kind of thing. You want to highlight the pain points. So address common issues buyers face in the real estate process. Confusion, time constraints, lack of knowledge are three examples, and demonstrate how you solve them. The best way to engage is to start with a problem, right? So you want to always have a rising action, right? That's like act one in storytelling is about getting to the rising action. You want to showcase the benefits. Use your list of options to describe the unique benefits of working with you. Each point should illustrate a specific value. So for market analysis, accurate pricing, skilled negotiation for better deals. Everything's the intention here is to relate it back to you specifically and why you specifically are the best agent to work for them. Add a human element. People connect with stories about other people. Include real life examples of how you've helped buyers overcome challenges or achieve their dreams. You guys are out in the field every day. You see so many different things and you've experienced so many different things. And let's say you're a newer agent and maybe you haven't experienced so many things. You have an entire team behind you that you can kind of utilize to aid in whatever kind of story or element that you want to talk about. In training and in Blue U, I've mentioned this a few times that I have adopted and co-opted Julie and Floria's stories all the time because they're great and they're useful and their stories are our stories, right? Where we are the Vanderbilt team. So we're all working on this together. And the two people that I'm mentioning, Julie and Floria, they're our leadership. So we can always kind of look to them and utilize their experience for when we're kind of trying to make these connections. You want to be authentic. Authenticity builds trust. Use your voice and experiences to create a genuine connection with your audience. I think out of everything on this list, being authentic is the most important thing that you can do in anything that you're doing in life, but specifically for your clients. People know when you're bullshitting. People will sniff out a lie or not able to kind of engage with you on the level that you would want them to if they don't feel like you're being authentic. So that's why we wanted to take a moment to kind of help build these stories together so that when you're out in the field and it comes time that you want to understand what value you can bring to buyers, you kind of have these in your back pocket and you're able to use them. Keep it simple. Avoid jargon and technical terms. Use simple, clear language that resonates with your audience. You know, we have to put our hats on of being what a buyer is and how we're in this business every single day, right? So when we're talking about appraisals and we're talking about analysis and this and that, it's all terms that we're comfortable with because we use them so frequently. But for buyers on the other side who aren't doing this day in and day out, they might get lost in the jargon. So you want to use as simple and kind of layman term language as possible so that they can best connect to whatever story that you're telling them. And lastly, include a call to action. End your story with a clear call to action. What do you want the buyers to do next? So I would say when you're going over your stories and you're in front of them and you're kind of presenting, the call to action would be to use you, right? To lock them in as your client. So I would say when you're giving the example, it should always end with how you solve the problem. And that's kind of your call to action because it shows them that whatever pain points you hit or issues you face, you were able to achieve a resolution that was equitable and positive for all. And it might not be that in the moment it was positive, or it might be that you had to pull somebody else in for it. But as long as you reached a point of resolution that was a positive one for everybody, that's your essentially your call to action. So far, so good. Anybody have any questions about this slide?
Good.
I said he was trying to get on. Is he on now?
There's Chris. Everybody smile for the camera. I have to take a picture for Chris so she knows who is here. Thank you, Chris. All right, so if we feel good, I'll move on to the next slide. All right, so today's gonna get a little interactive. I want us to start crafting our stories today. And if you're on the road, I completely understand. Obviously, don't start crafting your stories, focus on the road. But if you can, I want us to start working on this a little bit. So follow these steps to craft your stories. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna select 3 out of the 10 options from the list to build your story around. Consider the audience and what would be most relevant to them. So after I go through this slide, I have all 10 that we talked about during the buyer presentation, Blue U, to kind of have on screen so you guys can work on it. Second thing you want to do is outline the structure. Start with a brief introduction that outlines the buyer's problem. Introduce your solution, the specific service you provided, share a specific example or case study that demonstrates the impact of your service, and conclude with a call to action. So basically just going over what we just talked about. You want to identify your audience, which obviously you know the buyer that's in front of you, highlight the pain points, what was the issue, showcase the benefits, what you did to solve the issue, add a human element, make sure that it's a real life example, be authentic to yourself, so craft the story in your voice, keep it simple, don't do crazy things with valuation and appraisal gap and and call to action. Make sure that the solution is you focused. Write your story, write it in a conversational tone, make it relatable and engaging. Aim for a balance between detail and brevity. You want to keep the audience attention without overwhelming them with information. So I'm not asking you to put together an enormous novel and chapter of how captivating your inspection issue was and how you went above and beyond for your client, but something in a general sense that you can call back to when you're in a buyer presentation so that you can showcase your value specifically as an agent to your clients. So nothing crazy, nothing long, it shouldn't be, but something that you can kind of refer back to in those moments. Practice and refine. Read your story out loud to check for flow and coherence, make adjustments for clarity and impact. So you always want to be clear and impactful and present with confidence. When presenting your story to clients, maintain eye contact, use gestures and vary your tone to keep them engaged. And that's going to come with time. Obviously, you know, you guys are, everybody who's here is on a sliding scale of different experience in real estate. So it's going to come with time, and as you engage more with people, you're going to have more stories to pull from and more specific things to talk about. But where we are now, let's pull as much as we can and kind of craft from there. Chris, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, apologies, because there was a bunch of us in a waiting room that never went anywhere, so we came in late. So just for our edification, what exactly are we talking about today? Because I'm missing something.
Perfect, absolutely. I will start from here. So, did you guys see the crafting compelling stories section? Did you catch some of
We
this? I can go through
came
again.
in right in the middle of that, I think.
Okay, all right. So basically, how this Blue U training came together was during our buyer presentation in Blue U 2 weeks ago. There was
Okay.
a section where we were going over the top 10 reasons to use a buyer's agent. And then during that conversation, because that was kind of like, it was like an open forum class, we wanted to hear like if any edits needed to be done because it was a new presentation that we were just rolling out to everybody. A question or a comment from Christina arose that we wanted kind of a time so that we can build stories around the top 10 for you guys to use that are personal to yourselves when you're making those, when you're having that presentation. So
Perfect. Good.
thank you for asking. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah. It's just this. So this is an add value kind of point.
Exactly.
Got
Yes,
it.
it's
Perfect.
showing your value to buyers, and this can be used at any time, right? So not necessarily in a specific buyer presentation environment, but if you're on the phone with the buyer, you get a new lead, and you know you need to close the deal and have them as your client. You
Yep.
now have three things that you can kind of pull from and utilize with examples and storytelling to make as impactful of a argument as to why they should use you as their realtor.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so identify your audience, highlight the pain points, showcase the benefits, add a human element, be authentic, keep it simple, and include a call to action, which is your resolution. We went over how to do it, and now I have the 10 here. So these are all from the buyer presentation. You guys have them. You have it in your email because they sent out the buyer presentation. This was on the Blue U 2 weeks ago, and I have it here today so that you guys can use this to pull from. So going over it very briefly, going above and beyond, benefits of working with the right realtor throughout the home buying process. We have market analysis, skilled negotiation, matchmaking program, representation and advocacy, streamlined process, objective advice, legal protection, save time and effort, market experience, and the AIR network. If there's something on here that you think that you do as well for your client that you would want to choose instead, feel free to go for it. This is customized to you. So these are general examples that we want you guys to then be able to showcase with your own real life experiences. So let's go dark for like 10 minutes. If everybody wants to pick their 10, their 3 out of the 10, and start crafting examples. And if you have questions, we're here so we can kind of work through it together. Are majority of the people in a spot that they could, or are you guys driving? Because I know a lot of people are obviously on Zoom today. And I don't want anybody to get into any accidents. I don't need that on my conscience. Not all at once, everyone.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Not for you, for people that are on Zoom. I know that you're not driving.
Yeah, looks like maybe.
I'm not driving.
I'm not driving. All right, I think everybody's driving.
They're just not letting us see their pretty faces. Denise.
I'm not driving.
Okay, good.
I am not driving.
Me either.
Brian, is your twin driving?
Yeah,
It might be.
somewhere out in the world.
He's somewhere
Margaret
else.
is not driving.
Where's Ellen? I never get to see her.
I'm
Jacqueline,
outside, guys, sorry.
I'm not driving either.
Okay, good. All right.
I'm
so-
not driving anything other than my computer, which is refusing to comply.
Oh, no.
But I can
Are-
hear you.
Good.
Sharon's probably driving, but she can also write at the same time.
All right, so if anybody missed it, what we're doing right now is picking three examples from what's here and creating a story that you can pull from that you can use as a value to buyers. So examples that you can use during a buyer presentation or during a conversation with the buyer lead to showcase your value as a realtor and why they should be using you. So this is very important. This is not something that you don't want to do. You want to have examples prepared. So when you're talking to a buyer, you have them right in your holster, ready to rock, to make your case as to why a buyer should use you more than anybody else.
Can we share examples with each other just to get the
Yeah,
juices flowing?
Absolutely, sure. I think you had a really good example. And Chris, you had a really good example too, because I think you were here for the buyer presentation in person. I think you talked about, well, I know that you have a really good example for your, for the appraisal issue that you were having with the person with the deck, that you ended up moving the lender like 3 times. And I think
Yeah.
your example was about matchmaking. If you guys want to start with those, that would be great. Do you want to share your matchmaking example?
It's so funny, I never thought of matchmaking that way, now I kind of get it.
Yeah,
I think sometimes we say matchmaking, but I'm not always as clear
What it is.
exactly that means.
yeah,
But yeah, if it means door knocking and sending letters, then I definitely do that. And using my sphere and agent relationships to try to know if something's coming on the market, even if I can't get them in early, just to let them know, give them a little, what do you call it, sneak preview.
yeah,
Seems to people like that. Like they feel like they're getting something special if they know about it ahead of time. Although I don't always feel like they're as grateful as they should be. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could get you into this house.
right, before
And-
anybody else.
Yeah, and they're like, we're away, or.
Yeah.
They don't,
Exactly.
they don't. And that's kind of like going back to the whole value of like that you're trying to showcase to buyers, like you do that and that's unique to you, right? A lot of other people can say they do it, but you really do that. Like you actually connect with realtors to
Right.
try to get into people early.
Right.
You door knock and farm to try to get off market properties, and you have been successful in accomplishing that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like none of these things are easy or foolproof, but they do, even in just in theory, add value.
Right.
Like yesterday, I was showing Tainter, Christine's unfortunately named property in Southport. And my client was like, oh, and she looked across the street, she's like, that's like the exact same house, but like all fixed up. That's so beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
Oh,
oh, let's go knock on their door.
yeah.
So we did, and
Good.
they weren't home or whatever,
Mm.
but she was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I walked over there with her, or just we can ask who the architect was, or
Like how
they
much it
did, and how
costed
much it
or- right,
cost, and like, what did they do, and how, you know, all
Or the
kinds of
process, yeah,
value there.
yeah,
I don't know, I feel like a lot of times it's just in the moment of like, when you have a spontaneous story and you remember something that you've done for another client.
yeah,
Like, oh, my other clients they were so pregnant, they really needed a house, and, you know, and like, how you find them a house last minute type thing.
yeah, absolutely.
It's hard for me to think of them like, when I'm not in the moment, but I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of like when,
Like Julie's, she has a bag full of all her stories, and she just
Right.
pulls out the story.
exactly, whichever one
Yeah.
works best in the moment is the one that you want to pull out and have. And this is kind of like setting yourself up to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
So if you have like a really great story about an appraisal issue, you
Mhm.
want to kind of have that in your back pocket so you know, right?
Right.
Because like again, you know, you've been doing this for a while. You're not a new kid on the block. So you have things that you can pull from, and you kind of have those stories that you can manifest at a moment's notice, right? And
Yeah.
like bring up and
But I
discuss.
do use, when I was very new,
You use
still
Ju-
new.
oh,
when
yeah.
I was very new, I would use Julie's
Yeah, absolutely.
stories.
Yeah.
Not like it happened to me, but I would say like,
My team
you
leader
know,
did this.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's immediately your story as
Yeah.
well, because you're a part of the team. So anything that Julie has done or Floria has been through,
Yeah.
we can easily utilize those experiences, because the only way we know about them is because they told us about them. So it's authentic. It's us.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I agree. Very much agree.
I do, you know, I know that's not always possible, but like going on listing presentations with other people is where you tell a lot. It's like, that's where you hear a lot of stories. That's how I learned the stories from Julie. I learned how she used them. I saw the effect that they
The
had.
flow of them.
Yes, and
Yeah.
when she would use them, and it all becomes kind of obvious, but it's like not obvious until
You're there.
you're there.
So-
And it becomes, you know, whatever, like relevant.
Right. When we did the marketing presentation boot camp, out of that entire thing, like, and we always say, even if you come to training and you get one good thing out of it, like, it was a successful training. Like, our goal is so that by the time that you leave here, not that you took the entire thing with you, but like you got one really good thing out of it.
Yeah.
And my one, like, it was like, I would have signed right there. If it was really my house, I would have literally signed with Julie right there,
Yeah.
because she said when she was going over the homeowner's homework and she got to the point about the top 10, she said, the goal of the top 10, yes, we want to know,
Mhm.
you know, what you love about the house and what you're going to miss and that kind of thing. But I want you to think about what are some of the obstacles that people are going to have to get through,
And addressing.
and address them in your top 10.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my God, like you're putting that much attention to detail into this, that's gonna live on the very end of the brochure, that
Not
people,
everybody will see.
not everybody will see. And then the people who do see it, it's like you're already getting in front of anything that they're thinking of. And who better to tell them why it's not an issue than the person who's been living there for 20 years. And it was like,
If we're gonna be saying that, though, that story, we're
Right,
not saying that at
right.
the open houses.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's a double yellow line street, and Julie tells a story all the time, but, you know, the kids, she always says the same thing, big girls and boys, you know, riding their bikes all along the sidewalk to school, or whatever she says. She says it the same way every single time.
absolutely, 100%.
And that's her overcoming obstacles story.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like like a light bulb went off in that moment. I was like, wow, like we've really thought of
Overcoming
everything.
objections.
Overcoming objections, yeah. It's like we've thought of everything, even down to the homeowner's homework.
Yeah.
There's the face level value of it, and then there's the backside, the behind the scenes of what we're trying to push while we're doing that.
Right.
And that's something to think about when you guys are coming up with these stories. What is the message? Sharon, good luck on your showing. What is the message that you're trying to push, and what's the face level value that you're trying to convey to your client, but then or your potential client, and then what is the real reason behind that you're able to do that, right? What is your goal? So for Lorelei, I think when you're talking about your network of other realtors, on a face level, it's like, oh yeah, I know a lot of people, but on the backside, it's like, I'm established, I'm an authority, I know all these people and have relationship with them because I'm an experienced agent who has a lot of things under their belt.
Right.
I know how to work Fairfield County. You want to work with me.
Right.
So even if it's just,
Even though it's a construct.
it's all a construct.
I've only been doing it for 3 years.
It's a woozy, it's a wazi.
Yeah.
That's what this business is.
Yeah. But also, I think all of the stories, all of them, every bit of it is just to gain their trust.
Yeah,
And when they gain our trust a little bit, they want to work with us.
yeah, absolutely. I think we just had a really good podcast episode. All right, anybody on Zoom have anything to add right now? Not all at once.
Yeah, Mariano, it's Jack.
Yes.
Are we going to be sharing some of these so we can do what Lorelei suggested and use other agent stories? Because I'm new.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to hear other people's stories. Chris, Brian.
Yeah,
Ellen,
anybody
Randy.
else have a story that they want to add in here?
Like what
Something that
tell.
they use
Yeah.
for buyers to gain trust, showcase value, compelling stories?
Something you do differently than other people do, maybe. Brian, what do you do? What do you do when you're meeting a client for the first time to make sure that they're going to stay your client?
Did you ask me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh God. It depends. So I read the buyer, and I've got a lot of stories. So I tailor it to whatever specifically they need, but I reach into the network a lot, whether it be the team or the vendors that we have, or the contractors that we have, or the lenders that we have, or whatever it is. But I make it a not just about me, but about all the network that we offer.
So what's the story that you craft about all the lenders and network people that you know?
If it's someone that is complaining about the rate or something like that, I will tell them that, somebody came to me from M&T Bank with a rate of 6.5, but my guy was able to get down into the 5s.
Wow.
Whatever it is, I don't know. It all depends on the situation.
Yeah.
What do
Absolutely.
you say when people are like, when you're basically helping them understand how you're going to get their offer accepted? Do you ever have those conversations? Like what
Sure.
you do, how you tailor your offer?
Sure. And I tell them that we've got all kinds of strategies that work, and, whether it be waiving contingencies, or looking for properties that have been on the market for a little longer than, the brand new fresh things, or, whatever it be. I don't have like an elevator speech, so to say, but I think any situation I could come up with a story and talk about it.
Yeah. What if somebody is having a difficult time with let's say highest and best, do you have an example that you can pull from to kind of showcase? Like if a buyer comes to you and they're like, yeah, I want to work with you, but I heard that there's a lot of highest and best situations going on, and I'm kind of nervous about going into the market right now because I really don't want to get involved in those bidding wars. I'm just going to feel like crap if I don't get the house.
Yeah, and there's nothing to be nervous about that. Listen, that is the market that we are in, but it shouldn't be scary. We've got strategies to navigate it, and
what are your strategies?
One of the biggest things that we do is, look at your offer, and if let's say it's a $700,000 house, and you're willing to go up to 750, but then you find out that it sold for 760. Are you going to kick yourself for not going up that extra $10,000? Would you have gone there? And that's how you tailor your highest and best offer. And I know it's scary, and you don't want to overpay. So the greatest thing about it is that we have a mortgage contingency and an appraisal contingency. So if the house doesn't appraise for the 760 and it's really worth 750, we're going to find that out and we're going to have an opportunity to renegotiate.
That's awesome.
You're
I will,
hired.
I will work with you, Brian.
I would love to work with you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so I'm currently signed to Lorelei and I'm currently signed to Brian. Who else am I signing to? Who else has a
I'll
good
help you in New
example?
York.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, perfect. Chris, you got an example for us?
Yeah, so I've really worked on my listening skills because I'm a natural talker. And it's really important to sit there and let the people talk, tell you about themselves and their home and how it's the best thing since sliced bread. And when they're done, there's an opportunity for me to go in and focus in on a couple of key points because one, it shows them that you're listening, and that's people really just want to be heard. And two is focusing in on one or two key points that they made and tailoring it to your advantage by saying something like, yeah, you mentioned that, this was the first home you bought. And I want to take you back to a moment. Like, do you remember the first time you walked into this property? You were with your husband, right? Yeah. Okay. And were your kids there? No. Okay. I said, and what did you think? What was your first impression? And I know it was 22 years ago, but what was your first impression of this house? And I want you to be clear in your memory of that, because most of the time it's a favorable memory. I feel like I've only had one or two people say, negative, and because it's going to be a positive response, I tell people that's what we're looking for. That's the emotional connection that we must make to be successful to get you the most money for this home. And people start crying most of the time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. It's such a good way to connect with them authentically, and it kind of like, it makes them lead you to that point so that they feel like they're opening up and they feel like they can trust you with sharing this. And yeah, I could only imagine the gambit of different reactions and stories that even you got from that.
And then it allows you to, take them through the process of the importance of decluttering, taking down personalized items of theirs to allow the new buyer to envision themselves in that space.
Yeah.
And it just keeps leading them down the correct path.
Chris, you're hired. All right, so Chris is selling my house
For Stanford.
for Stanford. Lorelei's helping me buy in Connecticut, in Fairfield, Fairfield town, and then Brian's helping me buy in New York.
Are you getting divorced?
Ariana,
Because
thank
that's how we
you.
have it set up in the divorce division.
Oh my God.
True.
All right, who else? Who's next? Who else am I
Denise
hiring?
does Norwalk, so.
Tanya, you
Ariana,
got
can I chime in?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
absolutely.
I do want to say, have witnessed Chris doing this and listening to presentations, and I love that the first thing he does when he sits down is he says, "How can I help you?" And people just love that. They're like, "Wait, you don't want to talk about yourself?" Kind of throws them off, and I think it sets a good tone.
Awesome. I love
Yeah.
it. I think it's such a great way to disarm, make it about them, and then
Yeah.
also get them to speak authentically to you about whatever emotions that they're having right now.
Yeah, and then I do have a fun little story on how we won a multiple bid offer, or myself.
Love it.
My clients had decided to throw in some personal things they had, like their Ralph Lauren employee discount, and also professional soccer lessons for their son at no cost. So that really helped us win a deal.
Wow.
Didn't think of it, but sometimes you got to go outside the box, and it's not always about numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example to use when it comes to when if somebody's worried about highest and best and the crazy market and And it shows how you as an agent get creative, you're a skilled negotiator, you think outside of the box, because to us, there is no box. And whatever we could do to help make the deal happen, that's what we're going to do. So if it's soccer lessons and employee discounts, I love it. Tanya, you're hired.
Thank you.
Got me for Stratford.
Awesome.
All right, who else? Who else am I hiring? Who's got a story?
I've
Ellen,
got
David,
one about
Marlene.
Julie, if you can hear me.
Sorry, say that one more time.
I said I've got one about Julie, if you can hear me okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Julie sold my neighbor's property, literally next door. It's one of the reasons I joined you. And it sold for $125,000 over listing. And I loved my neighbor so much. She was a senior. She was nearly 80 when she passed, and everybody loved her. And her garden was extraordinary. So when she passed and the house was in probate, one of the ways they went to highest and best, and I know this from Kathy, her daughter, who told me, was that the highest and best offer included that the person would look after the garden.
Oh, wow.
So as a reference to her mother and honoring her mother's legacy, that's what Kathy told me was part of why they chose my new neighbors.
Oh my gosh, it's awesome. It's beautiful. And I mean, that's great. I think for you in terms of stories, that's awesome to kind of showcase like what we do as a team and how formidable we are and how we make deals happen. And then also, it shows that even in a business that everybody thinks is very transactional and cold, there really is a lot of warm moments. And we want to make sure that we're protecting and serving our clients the best way that they want us to, not the way that we want to. So that's great. I love that. Jack, you're hired.
Yay!
All right, I got a few more people to hire. Who else? Who else? David, you got one? Got an example for us? Oh, I think you're on mute right now.
There we go. Better?
There you go. Yep.
Probably the biggest thing that I do primarily, with buyers is let them know I go the long distance with them for them, that I'm available, on a dime. And I really do get back to them quickly on anything that they might have a question about. That's probably my biggest advantage, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, I really attend to them. And apart from that, then
Absolutely.
I do, yeah. And then I get
I
into,
know of a great example that you can use from that listing that you were working on, and how it was over a year that you were sending this guy contractors, painters, different painters, helping him set up appointments, different cleaners, going over the quotes with him. People, that's above and beyond if I've ever seen it. So even that, just to show your dedication and how much you're willing to do for your clients, I think that's an amazing example.
cool.
Hired. You guys are easy sells. All right, who's next? We got Ellen, Marlene, Denise, Carmen, Margaret.
I can go.
Okay.
I
Awesome.
agree with Chris when you said that you have to be authentic. And sometimes when you go on a presentation, you have you have your list of things that you want to talk about with them, and then it goes right out the window. It goes, you might
Yeah.
have for me, I always have a presentation ready, and beginning, middle, and end. So when you meet with a customer, they usually start taking you through the house, or And then the conversation, and then you totally forgot about your presentation, and then all of a sudden they say, where do I sign? You know, but they just, I think they really want to get to know you and see who you are, and you have to be authentic
Yeah,
because they can see right through that.
absolutely. I think authenticity is super important, and making sure that they can feel you're giving them the real you. Because people want to work with people, right? They don't want to work with numbers and presentations. They want to work with you and what value that you can bring. So I think that's awesome. Hired for Florida. I'm coming down. All right, we're getting to the end. I think we got our final four: Ellen, Denise, Carmen, Margaret. Who's up next? Who do I got? I think Carmen just took off her microphone, so I'm gonna say Carmen.
Well, I'm starting to drive, but well, haven't presented anything yet. But I guess I could use my experience with rehabs and owning multifamilies to help investors with their purchases. So, you know, I would have market experience, actual experience running rehabs, and I could help guide them. And also, per what you just said about David, I could supply them with different contractors and helpers to get their project completed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have so much value that you could bring to any investor client, between the network that you have, people that you can refer, but also your own experience being in their shoes. There's nothing more authentic than that, and there's nobody that can speak to what they're going through more than somebody who's already done it. So I completely agree. And you're hired for any investment or rehab purchases. Thank you.
Okay, so now the question back to you is, what do I do for non-investors? Like, that's where I'm gonna struggle.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think you use what you're considering right now a weakness as your strength point. So when people are starting the buying process, it could be very emotional, right? And they could be looking at it as like, oh, butterflies and rainbows, and what am I gonna love, and what's the emotion about it, and things like that. But they might not consider how much of an investment it is, and they have to make sure that the investment makes sense. And I think that you can kind of help showcase that, listen, like, you know, I'm doing this because I love homes and I love putting people into homes. So I completely understand the emotional aspect to all of this, because you've bought homes, like, you know what that looks like. And then for your protection, I'm also going to make sure that you're never going to make a bad investment. I've done rehabs before. I own properties. I know what that looks like. So for you, I'm not only going to protect you and your emotions, and making sure that you're not making an emotional decision, that it also makes sense for you financially as well, because it is such a big financial investment that you're putting in to a house. So you need somebody who's going to be able to take care of both sides of that, your emotional side and then also the investment side.
Okay, thanks. That's a good point.
Absolutely. Thank you. Denise, have fun on your showing. Thank you. Good luck. All right, final two, Ellen and Margaret. Oh, Ellen's on a call. She just texted me. So Margaret, are you there?
Yeah, hi, good morning. I'm here. I'm sorry, I was outside.
Good morning.
Yeah, so I guess I just do on the buyer side right now, I just try and go above and beyond and help them with anything I can help them with. And I often offer my husband to, you know, construction side of things, if they need anything done or need some ideas. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know firsthand from you how many you go really deep with options. I think that you're great at showcasing what's the potential, what's the possibilities. With Roselle, like you looked under every rock to see what we could do to make sure that this place sells, and it did. And you got a great number for it, and you got the buyer for it. So you did, yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Margaret did.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that your value point is going above and literally just going above and beyond. Like you're not gonna rest, like you're gonna provide examples, you're gonna look at any options that you guys can explore. You're gonna see who you have in your network to make those possibilities and options a reality. So I think that it's Groselle is such a great story to tell, and utilizing your husband and seeing what he could do for them, for your clients, is super important. Great value points.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
hired.
Thank you.
Once everybody fails, I'm going to Margaret.
Okay.
Not saying
Thank
you guys
you.
fail,
Uh-huh.
not saying that, but
Yeah.
if exactly. All right, I think that's everybody. Do you guys have any questions? I really appreciated the exercise and you guys getting to share with one another how you guys can use this in your day-to-day. And I think that everybody came with really great examples. And Brian, you said it earlier, it's kind of like an elevator speech, and that's kind of the thought process going into this too, because you want to be polished, you want to have something under your belt, and like Chris does with his listing presentations, over time, it's going to get more clear, and it's going to just become part of your practice, right? It's going to be how you present every single time. So that's something just to keep in mind as you're going over your own examples separately. All right. Anybody else want to add anything?
What if, what if anything has been, I know we're in a state of flux right now, but due to the changes with NAR, what if anything has been discussed or finalized with regards to us and representation agreements prior to us showing the very first property to a buyer?
Yeah, absolutely. So as of right now, legally speaking, nothing has changed. Something that we're doing as a team that we started doing, and Grace mentioned it in her WhatsApp, and I think on email too, last week, or it was beginning of this week, end of last week. We started including in your open house binders the agency/fair housing representation form. We heard that a few of you have been seeing it out in the public more. Again, legally speaking, that should always have been signed prior to any of this happening. That agency disclosure and fair housing form should be signed at first substantial contact. That's the lingo. First substantial contact that you have with an unrepresented buyer. So if they go to an open house, if you do a showing with them, if you're having a Zoom presentation with them, technically speaking, those are all considered first substantial contacts, and you should be having them signed. So we're including them moving forward for you guys if you would like to add that to your daily practice. As of right now, on our end, formally speaking, there is no changes. We're doing everything as we typically would. All
So
the documents
NAR actually wrote an email with some frequently asked questions. I don't know if you guys saw it, but if you dive into it, there are some new rules that they implemented. So one of them is that you cannot be paid unless you have a buyer's representation agreement. And you cannot get more, you cannot be compensated more than what is on that buyer's agency agreement. So if you put down that you are getting 2.5%, and then for whatever reason, it's a 3% buyer's agent being offered out, you cannot take that 3%.
Right.
You have to go to the 2.5%.
Can you put
so that's one of the new rules.
Can you forward me that email?
I can forward it to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Where was that from? Who's that come from?
He said NAR.
Brian, does it have language that says you can go up to a certain percentage, or it has to be a fixed amount?
So you can go, you could reduce it, but you can't go over what your original amount that you put in your buyer's agency agreement is. So basically we should be, when we go out with a buyer, giving them a buyer's agency agreement that says, you know, something to the effect of up to 3%. instead
Well,
of,
agency and representation are two different things, right? An exclusive to represent is, are you talking about, because you need an agency disclosure signed. You
yep.
should have that signed right away.
We should
That's
be-
not a binding contract.
But we
But-
should be putting a commission in there. Previously, we would put seller pays commission as sort of a marketing tool because, you know, really the buyer was always paying the commission. But now we should be putting a number.
Yeah, he's talking about the.
And whatever number, you can't be compensated. So if it turns out that, you know, it's a relo or something and it's higher than your typical agent pay, you cannot collect any more than what's on that original agreement.
Interesting.
So if you put 0, you're getting 0.
Okay. Can you, yeah, whenever you can, if you could forward that, because I want to look at
Sure.
it. And
I
then
will.
I'll ask Leslie too, if she knows anything about these changes.
I
Yep.
also think we should start to be covering ourselves in those forms because things are gonna change in the next few months and then we still might be working with those same people. And I don't wanna scare people off, but like, can we talk at some point about what should we, or should we just not do anything new yet?
I don't think that we should do anything new
Because if
yet.
we have seller pays commission and then in the event that that's actually not true.
So we updated all of the documents on Dotloop right now have been updated for 2024. So anything that's in the Vanderblue buyer form, seller form, rental forms are all the most recently updated based on Higgins and us. And in there, the language has been made to be a little bit more flexible. So there's things in place, but I would not change the way that we conduct business
Okay.
because the way that we conduct business has not been changed.
So I had a buyer say they had been working with a previous agent who had told them about everything that's going on.
Yeah,
So they said, oh my gosh, we just want to make sure you get compensated. Please let us know if there's
Yeah.
something that we need to consider or know about or change and they were completely like understanding that
Yeah.
I had to get paid.
Yeah.
But then I said, well, this, this offer that we're making is they're paying the commission. So I
Right.
don't need to worry about it. But I loved that they were already kind
yeah,
of like
absolutely.
primed.
You don't wanna, if it ever comes up, obviously you address it and talk about it very directly and honestly and
But could I
authentically.
put that in the exclusive with them, that,
What would you put?
Seller pays commission, or in
And
the event seller's not paying commission, 2.5%.
on the updated exclusive,
Yeah.
the verbiage is more or less that. So it covers, that's,
Okay,
it's flexible enough that, again, I don't think that we have to change anything right now because it's flexible and it covers enough that we shouldn't need to
Yeah.
right now. Come July, things might change, but for right now, I think we're really covered. I think we're looking good at this point with what we have.
and what I'm hearing from some of the lenders, is that it can be a concession.
Yes, yeah,
That's how this is probably gonna be solved.
Yeah.
Right? So there's just gonna be a concession in the closing
yeah,
stuff. That's nothing to do with the maximum concessions that you can have.
right,
Yes, it's completely separate and unrelated,
yeah.
which, I mean, is amazing.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
so
anyway,
I
well, I
think.
guess we'll be learning more.
Yeah, I think for all in all, I think what we have in terms of exclusives should cover you guys enough. And then if anything specifically changes more, then we can kind of go from there. Chris, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, what was the form that we're including in the open house packets now?
The buyer agency disclosure that has the agency, and then in the second column, it has the fair housing notice. That we're gonna start adding to the open house binders so that you guys have it. Because again, legally speaking, it should be signed on first substantial contact. But our kind of stance is business as usual.
Got it, thank you.
Absolutely. Alrighty, anybody else? Everybody feeling good for today? Any other questions? Anything you guys want to review? Once, twice sold? All right, well, thank you guys very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And Brian, please, whenever you can, if you could send, forward me that email.
I just sent you it.
Thank you kindly.
There were
All right,
actually, there
have
were
a good-
two. So there was an initial email that just said, check the frequently asked questions. And then there was a
Oh.
second one, which actually sort of dove in, because I guess people were having trouble signing in. That dove into it a little bit more, but I'm trying to find that first email. I sent you the follow-up email. But if you just go to your messages, anyone that's a member of NAR should have probably got it, and search NAR.
I am. What is it?
And it's the FAQs,
Hmm.
FAQ, and search FAQ. It's from Katie Johnson at NAR, the Chief Legal Officer.
Oh, well, this
So it's not from,
is, see, this is, okay, so this is not in place right now. None of this that they're saying in here is in place currently. This is all a part of the settlement, but the settlement has, and they say, as a reminder, we received preliminary approval of the settlement on April 24th, but it is still subject to final court approval. The final approval hearing is scheduled for November 26, 2024. So none of this that they're saying is actually in place right now. And it's not even July anymore, it's now November.
No,
So
but
none of this
all
happened
this
next-
stuff, all the stuff below it is below.
No.
Keep going.
Right, none of this stuff is in place. This is all part of the settlement.
Okay.
They said, we are writing to share, we have updated our FAQ to include additional information and clarity about written buyer's agreement. As you know, as a part of this settlement, we have agreed to require MLS participant working with the buyers to enter into written agreements with their buyers before touring a home. But the settlement is not approved yet. So all of this is a part of the settlement. So none of this is actually happening right now.
But they're saying that's what will happen
This is,
when.
right, this is what will happen when, but not
when
right
and
now.
if the judge approves this.
Exactly, yes. So all of this is good for post November 22nd, 26th.
And they're positive that it's definitely November now, not July at all.
And it says right here, the final approval hearing is scheduled for November 26th, 2024. So now I guess it got pushed from July. And who knows if it got pushed after November too. It's only, they only have preliminary approval. They're still waiting for the final court approval. So none of this is, again, business as usual.
Okay.
All right.
But I do think, to what I was saying, we should be talking about what to put in those buyer exclusives, as opposed to what we were, like, we were always putting seller pays commission.
Well, I want you guys to read, and Brian and Lorelai, if you can, that would actually be great, because you guys see the buyer representations a lot. I want you guys to read the current commission section on the new ones that we added, and let me know what your thoughts are on them. In Dotloop. If you
It's
go
in
to
Dotloop?
Dotloop, you go to Vanderblue buyer forms, in the commission section, it's been updated, and it's the Higgins one. It's either Higgins or Carr, but I'm pretty sure it's Higgins, and they did it to be a little bit more loose. So let me know what your thoughts are on it, because I think that this should clear up any current issues that we're having now.
Okay. I'll take a look.
All right. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Have a good
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mario.